You know that feeling when you're watching a huge, top-level football match and something just feels off? All the stars are on the pitch, the stakes couldn't be higher, but that spark, that magic, it's just gone. Well, let me tell you, you are not imagining it. We're going to dive deep into the hidden crisis that's seriously breaking the beautiful game from the inside out.
Right? This is the question that I think is on every single fan's mind. I mean, we're constantly told we're in the golden age, right? The most sophisticated tactics, the most incredible athletes ever. But then you watch the actual game and it just feels, I don't know, stretched out, predictable, and hollow. So what is really going on here?
Okay, so here's the core of the problem. There's this massive gap between the promise and the reality. We get sold this dream of super complex, high-energy pressing systems. But what we're actually seeing on the pitch? Players running on fumes at just 40% of their mental and neurological capacity? It means that elite performance is basically become an illusion.
All right, let's get into it. First up, the game is glitching. And to really get this, you have to stop thinking about it as just, players having a bad day. This is a system-wide problem. It's like the game's code is starting to break down.
And look, the data is just shocking. A 2025 FIFPro report found that in 15% of their matches, elite players are competing at less than 40% of their nervous capacity. Now, this is not just about having sore legs. Nervous capacity is all about the brain's processing power, the ability to see the pass, react in a split second, and make smart choices. So yeah, the player's body might be on the field, but their brain, it's pretty much checked out.
So you gotta be asking, how in the world did we get here? Well, that brings us to our next point, the body's red zone. The data tells a really clear story about these insane physical demands that have basically pushed players' bodies into a permanent danger zone.
Okay, just look at the numbers. Since the early 2000s, the amount of high-intensity running a player has to do has jumped by 30%. 30%!
And that's not all. The number of all-out sprints, the really explosive stuff that just drains you, that's basically doubled.
And just to pile on, there's nowhere to hide, because the ball is in play for an extra 12 minutes now compared to back in 1990. All those little moments to catch your breath, gone. It's just more running, more sprinting, with way less time to recover.
And all of this leads to a really important idea from sports science, the acute to chronic workload ratio. It sounds complicated, but it's super simple. Think about it like this. If you usually jog a mile a day, and then one day you just decide to run a marathon, you're going to get hurt, right? That's the danger zone. And right now, the football calendar is forcing players to live in that danger zone week in, week out. It makes injuries not just a risk, but pretty much a guarantee.
So you'd think, okay, they must be training like crazy to handle this, right? Wrong. The shocking truth is, they can't. We're talking about elite teams where, between October and March, real tactical training at match intensity is basically impossible. It's been replaced by something called sub-walks. I'm not kidding. They are literally walking through their tactical positions on the training ground because they're just too wiped out to do it for real. It's insane.
Okay, so we've covered the physical toll, but this goes way deeper. The real crisis, the real breakdown, happens when that physical exhaustion leads to our next section, when the brain shuts down.
Think about the high press for a second. It's the tactic that defines modern football, right? That super aggressive, in-your-face style of winning the ball back. Well, here's the thing. It's not sustainable for a full game anymore. Not even close. The data shows that after about 65 minutes, the effectiveness of a high press just falls off a cliff. It plummets by 40%. It's turned into a tactic you can only really use for about an hour.
So why is that? It's actually all about neuroscience. When your brain is fresh, it uses what's called System 2 thinking. That's your smart, analytical brain that can handle complex tactics. But when you're exhausted, your brain flips a switch and goes into System 1 mode. That's your autopilot brain. It just wants to save energy and revert to simple, basic habits. It's the difference between a chess master and someone just trying not to fall over.
And we can actually measure this mental breakdown in real time. Advanced models that track control of the pitch show that late in a match, as that mental fatigue really kicks in, teams lose about 15% of their control over key spaces. Their whole tactical shape, their structure, it just dissolves.
So what does all this add up to? Well, it means we've entered a new phase, which brings us to part 4, football on life support. Seriously. Coaches aren't tactical geniuses anymore. They're more like paramedics on the sideline, just trying to keep their team alive for 90 minutes.
And this has created a wild new reality for top clubs. Picture this. On match day,
The first thing they do is check the team's bioscore from sensors the players wear. If that score comes back low, meaning everyone's exhausted, the whole game plan can get tossed right out the window. That aggressive high press they worked on, gone. Instead, they'll switch to a defensive low block just to conserve energy. It's no longer about tactics or philosophy, it's just about what the bodies can handle.
And all this leads to a phenomenon called football edulcoré, which basically means watered-down football. You know when you're watching a game and it's just endless, mind-numbing sideways passing with zero risk? Well, that's not always just bad tactics. A lot of the time, it's the players themselves deliberately slowing things down. It's their way of managing their energy, and in a way, it's a kind of silent protest against this brutal schedule.
Okay, so we've seen the symptoms everywhere, on the pitch, in the players' bodies, in their minds. But what's the root cause of all this? What's the real villain of the story? That brings us to our final point, the calendar grinding machine. It's a machine that just never, ever stops.
I mean, just look at the expansion. It is absolutely relentless. We've got an expanded Champions League with more teams and more games. We've got a brand new Club World Cup taking over the summer. And all the while, the domestic leagues aren't giving up an inch. There's just no time for recovery. And the idea of a preseason, you know, that crucial time to build up fitness for the year? Forget about it. It's basically disappeared.
And really, it all comes down to this powerful quote from a French international player. He said, "They want us to play faster, but no one asked us if there was any gas left in the tank." And that just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? The people in charge are obsessed with making the product faster, more intense, more everything. But they seem to have forgotten about the actual human beings who have to go out there and play. So the question we're left with isn't just about why football feels empty. It's about what price we're willing to pay for the beautiful game.